What would you do if the woman you fired turned out to be the only person who could save your daughter and your heart? The cries echoed through the vast London penthouse like a fire alarm that no one could shut off. Jack Callahan stood by the window, staring out over the grey skyline, his phone pressed to his ear, jaw clenched tight. "No way. That's 3 nannies in a single week," he muttered, voice low and drained. On the other end, his assistant hesitated. "Sir, she said she just couldn't take the baby's crying anymore. Said she's never heard anything like it." Jack didn't respond at first. He simply closed his eyes, ran a hand through his hair, and slammed the phone down. His chest rose and fell as he tried to steady his breathing. The echo of Emily's cries reached him again, high-pitched and heart-wrenching. Since Rachel passed, nothing had been the same. Emily was barely 8 months old. And no one, not a nanny, not a relative, not even Jack himself, had been able to soothe her for more than a few minutes. The crying had become a constant background to their lives. Unrelenting, exhausting, a sound that carried grief, confusion, and loss in every wail. Downstairs, Ava Carter wiped the edge of a tall window, glancing occasionally at the towering art pieces that looked far too expensive to touch. She wasn't supposed to be here today, but a last-minute call from the agency had sent her to this address. Emergency cleaning, they said. Big house, big paycheck. She needed it. Ava had only been in London for 6 months. Jamaica still echoed in her heart, its colours, its warmth, and the sound of her grandmother humming while peeling mangoes by the back porch. Everything here felt colder, sharper, and today, lonelier than ever. A sudden cry pierced the air, not the usual baby fuss. This one felt like it ripped straight through the walls. Ava paused, cloth still in hand, and looked toward the ceiling. She knew babies, grew up raising cousins and neighbors' kids back home. This wasn't a hungry cry, not a tired cry. This was something else. Desperation, fear, pain. She hesitated only a moment before setting the cloth down and heading toward the stairs. Each step brought her closer to the sound. At the top of the stairs, a door stood ajar, and the cries poured out like waves of sorrow. Ava peeked in. A baby girl lay in a crib, her face flushed deep red, fists balled tightly as she kicked and wailed. Her little chest heaved, her onesie clung damply to her skin, and her nappy sagged, clearly needing changing. "Hello?" Ava called softly, eyes scanning the room. No answer. No footsteps. No one coming. She knew she shouldn't enter. It wasn't her place. But something in that child's cries tore at her chest. It was the kind of sound that ignored rules and job descriptions. Moving gently, Ava stepped into the nursery. Her voice softened. "Shh. It's okay, baby girl. What's going on?" The baby didn't stop crying, but her eyes turned toward the sound of Ava's voice. With practiced hands, Ava found a clean nappy and soft clothes in the nearby dresser. She moved with the careful rhythm of someone who had done this 100 times. And maybe she had. Just never in a house this big. Never with a child this lost. She cleaned and dressed Emily, then lifted her gently. The baby flinched at first, but Ava's warm touch and quiet humming slowly worked their magic. "There we go," Ava whispered, bouncing slightly as she walked. "You're not alone, little one." "Not today." The cries quieted, then stopped altogether. Emily rested her head on Ava's shoulder, her breathing slowing, small fingers curling into Ava's shirt. A voice cut through the air. "What on earth are you doing?" Ava turned around sharply. A tall man stood in the doorway, dark suit, sharp jawline, cold eyes. Jack Callahan. I'm sorry," Ava stammered. "The baby was crying. I didn't see anyone around." "You're the cleaner. Who gave you permission to touch my daughter?" Ava instinctively pulled the baby closer before quickly realizing and handing her over. "No one. She seemed desperate." Jack took Emily in his arms, Within seconds, the cries returned. Loud. Angry. As if her tiny body had registered the change, he tried rocking her, bouncing, whispering her name. Nothing worked. Jack glanced back at Ava, bewildered. "She stopped with you," he said slowly. "She was hungry, and wet, and overheating," Ava replied, trying to sound respectful. Jack looked at his daughter as if noticing for the first time how miserable she'd been. "Have you taken care of babies before?" "Yes, sir. My cousins. Back home." He hesitated. Then, without thinking too much, he said, "Take her again." Ava froze. "Are you sure?" Jack nodded, arms outstretched. She gently took Emily once more, and like magic, the baby calmed again. Her breath slowed. Her little hand reached up to grasp Ava's necklace, holding it like a lifeline. Jack stared. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ava Carter. I work for the cleaning agency." "Where are you from?" "Jamaica. I arrived 6 months ago." Jack was silent for a long time. His eyes stayed fixed on the baby nestled against this stranger's chest, the first piece he'd seen on his daughter's face in months. "Her bottle's in the kitchen," he said finally. "Go prepare it, please." Ava didn't respond right away. But then she nodded and walked downstairs with the baby, still in her arms. In the kitchen, she moved by instinct. Heated water. Tested the milk. Held Emily close as she fed, the baby drinking quietly, her eyes fixed on Ava's face with a trust too deep for words. Jack stood in the doorway, watching. The house was finally quiet. He didn't know who this woman was or why his daughter had taken to her, but something inside him, a part that had been numb for months, felt the faintest stir. And it all began with one cry. Jack Callahan hadn't planned on hiring a nanny that day. He hadn't planned on anything, really not since Rachel died. Life had become a string of broken routines and sleepless nights, of failed nannies and endless crying. He moved through his days like a man underwater, silent, slow, half alive. But now, standing in the hallway outside the kitchen, watching a complete stranger cradle his daughter with more tenderness than he'd seen in months, Jack felt something crack open. Not grief, not guilt, possibility. He stepped into the kitchen. Ava Carter stood at the counter, rocking Emily gently in one arm while preparing a bottle with the other. The baby's cries had stopped. Her breathing was even. Her eyes, though tired, held no trace of distress. "She's drinking," Ava said softly without turning around. Jack nodded, unsure what to do with his hands, his voice, or his thoughts. "That's good." Ava turned slightly to face him. "Do you have any clean bibs?" "In the cabinet by the fridge." She found one and tucked it gently under Emily's chin. Jack watched her every move, not because he didn't trust her, but because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. His daughter, who hadn't slept properly in weeks, was now nestled in the arms of a woman he'd known for less than an hour. Quiet, content. Ava looked up. She's not just crying because she's difficult. Babies cry when they're in distress. They can't speak, so this is how they tell you something's wrong. "I know that," Jack said, more defensively than he meant to. Ava didn't flinch. She simply returned her attention to the baby, humming under her breath, a soft lullaby that carried the warmth of another world. "You're good with her," Jack said after a long pause. "I've had practice." "Where?" "My cousins back home. I raised 2 of them when their parents left for Kingston. And I worked for a family there before coming to London." Jack folded his arms, leaning against the doorway. "Why London?" "My grandmother needs surgery. It's expensive. I can earn more here and send the money home." Jack nodded, slowly processing her words. She spoke with quiet strength, no trace of self-pity or drama. Just honesty. "You're just here to clean." "Today was an emergency job. Someone else called in sick." Jack looked at Emily. The baby was starting to doze, Her tiny fingers wrapped tightly around Ava's shirt. "None of the nannies we hired could do that," he muttered. Ava didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Jack cleared his throat. "When do you finish work today?" "Officially, in an hour. After that, would you come to my office? I have a proposal." Ava glanced up, guarded. "A proposal?" Jack raised a hand quickly. "Nothing inappropriate, just something I'd like to discuss." Ava looked down at Emily. "I'll finish my shift first." "Of course." An hour later, she stood outside his office, wiping her hands on her jeans. She'd changed Emily, put her to sleep, and cleaned the nursery before coming down. She knocked once. A quiet "come in" followed. The office was sleek and dark, with tall bookshelves and a large wooden desk. Jack stood behind it, not sitting, holding a folder. "Please, have a seat." Ava sat, unsure if she should cross her legs or keep them flat, unsure of everything except the quiet beat of her heart, faster than usual. Jack studied her a moment before speaking. "I've had nannies with degrees, training, decades of experience. None of them lasted more than 3 days. But today, you walked in, and in minutes, you had my daughter calm, clean, fed, and asleep." Ava said nothing. "I want to offer you a full-time position, as Emily's nanny." Ava blinked. "Sir, I'm not a professional. I clean houses. I'm not certified." "I don't care about certification. I care that my daughter is okay. And with you, she is." He opened the folder. "I spoke to your cleaning agency. They gave me your file. You come highly recommended." Ava shifted in her chair. "This isn't what I expected." "Neither did I," Jack replied. "I'm offering a live-in position. You'll have your own room in the staff quarters, weekends off, and a salary of £20,000 a month." Ava's mouth parted slightly. That was more than she could have earned in a year back home. I don't know," she said slowly. "Looking after a baby full-time is very different. If something happens, I know the risks, but I also know this. You're the first person who's made my daughter smile in weeks." Ava looked down, fingers tightening slightly on the arms of the chair. She thought of her grandmother, of the medical bills, of the stress of sending money she barely made. And then she thought of Emily's tiny hands clutching her blouse, of the quiet trust that had passed between them. "When would I start?" "Tomorrow." A pause. Then Ava nodded. "I accept." Jack exhaled slowly, something loosening in his shoulders. "Thank you." The next morning, Ava returned with a small suitcase and a cautious heart. She was shown to a simple room in the staff wing and then to Emily's nursery. "She eats at different times," Jack explained. "She doesn't sleep well." "Nothing's predictable." "We'll change that," Ava said gently. "Babies need routine. It gives them a sense of safety." Emily stirred in her crib as they entered. Her eyes opened, and the second she saw Ava, she reached out with a tiny, eager hand. "Well," Jack said, half smiling. "She remembers you." Ava smiled softly, lifting the baby into her arms. "Hello, little one. Ready to make this your home?" And just like that, the storm began to settle. For the first time in weeks, the Callahan home was quiet. Not sterile, not tense, just quiet. Emily had a schedule now. She napped at regular hours, ate without screaming, and even giggled occasionally. Her favorite moment was always the same, when Ava Carter entered the room. Jack noticed it within days. He'd walk past the nursery and hear soft laughter, Ava's soothing voice narrating picture books, or gentle humming as she folded tiny onesies. The house, once filled with cold silence and piercing cries, had grown warmer, softer. It unnerved him. He didn't like how much he noticed Ava. The way her voice lowered when she held Emily, the care in her hands, the way she never tried to impress or pretend. She just was, and maybe that was the most disarming part. Jack kept his distance at first. not out of rudeness, but self-preservation. He told himself she was just the nanny, an employee. Nothing more. But then he'd catch himself lingering in the doorway longer than necessary, watching her brush Emily's curls, hearing her sing a lullaby he didn't recognize, something Caribbean and melodic, like sunlight in musical form. He knew he was slipping, and he hated it. Ava, on the other hand, didn't expect much from Jack. He was polite, distant, always sharp in speech, but never cruel. He rarely smiled, never laughed. But she saw things most people missed. Like how he lingered near Emily's crib when the baby slept. How he paused at the door each night before walking away. How his eyes softened just for a second when he watched them together. One evening, just before Emily's bedtime, Ava stood in the kitchen stirring mashed carrots while the baby babbled happily in her high chair. She wore one of Jack's old kitchen aprons, too big and stained with memories she didn't know. Jack entered the room silently, loosened his tie, and leaned on the counter. "She's in a good mood," he said. "She had a long nap," Ava replied, "and she discovered she likes the sound of her own voice. She gets that from her mother." The words slipped out before Jack could catch them. Ava didn't respond, just gave a soft smile and stirred again. "Do you mind if I feed her tonight?" Jack asked suddenly. Ava looked up, surprised. "Of course not." Jack approached Emily, who squealed with excitement, kicking her feet against the high chair. He took the spoon from Ava and sat down in front of her. The first spoonful landed more on Emily's cheek than in her mouth. The baby made a face, unimpressed. Jack winced. "I guess I'm rusty." Ava laughed, the sound light and effortless. "It takes practice." He tried again. This time Emily opened her mouth like a tiny bird and swallowed. "Well, look at that," Jack said quietly. She didn't spit it out. "She's getting used to you," Ava said, watching them closely. He didn't look at her, but something in his voice shifted. "I wish I knew how to be around her. I don't want to fail her, not after everything." "You won't," Ava said gently. "Babies don't need perfection. They need presence." Jack looked up, meeting her gaze for a beat longer than usual. Later that night, a thunderstorm rolled in, shaking the windows with each gust of wind. The lights flickered once, then twice, and then went out completely. From the nursery, Emily let out a shriek. Ava moved instantly, lighting a candle from the kitchen and hurrying upstairs. Jack was already there, pacing the nursery, phone flashlight in hand. "She was in the bath," he said. "I got her out, but she's scared." Ava took the baby from his arms, her voice low and calming. "It's all right, sweetheart. It's just the sky talking." Emily clung to her, tiny arms wrapped tight. They brought her downstairs and laid her on a blanket in the living room. Jack found a few candles and lit them one by one, their soft glow casting dancing shadows across the walls. Emily calmed, watching the flickers like magic. Ava sat beside her, gently stroking her hair. Jack lowered himself to the floor on the opposite side. For a long while, no one spoke, just the sound of rain, of wind brushing against glass, of Emily's quiet coos. Then Jack broke the silence. "Do you miss home?" Ava looked over, startled by the question. "Every day," she said. "Especially my grandmother. She raised me. She's sick now. That's why I came." "She's still in Jamaica?" Ava nodded. "She needs surgery, but it's expensive. I send what I can." Jack stared into the candlelight. "My wife, Rachel. She was sick for a long time too. We kept hoping she'd recover. And then she didn't." "I'm sorry," Ava whispered. He gave a short, bitter laugh. "I keep waiting to stop being angry. At the world, at myself, even at her sometimes, which makes no sense." "It makes all the sense," Ava replied quietly. "Grief doesn't follow logic." Jack looked at her again, really looked. "You're the first person who said that without sounding like a therapist." "I'm not," Just someone who's seen loss from a different side. Emily yawned, curling into Ava's side. She trusts you, Jack said. Like she was waiting for you. Ava said nothing. The moment was fragile, charged. Jack moved slightly closer. Not touching, but close enough to feel her warmth beside him. You make this place feel alive again, he said. I didn't realize how empty it was. Sometimes it takes a child to show us what matters, Ava replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The candlelight flickered. Emily slept soundly. Jack reached out, brushing a curl from Ava's forehead. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. This is dangerous, she said softly. I know. I work for you. I know that too. But right now, we're just two people watching over a child who saved us both. And in that moment, simple, quiet, real something between them shifted. Not a declaration, not a decision. Just a beginning. The days that followed felt gentler. Emily was thriving. Her weight had picked up. Her smiles came more easily. She reached for Ava the moment she woke and snuggled into her arms without hesitation. Jack noticed it all. How much peace now filled his home. How much Ava had changed, not just his daughter, but something in him too. Yet the closeness between Jack and Ava remained delicate. There was warmth, yes, and glances that lingered too long. But both carried unspoken boundaries. She was the employee. He was the boss. And beneath their quiet connection, a memory still haunted every corner of the house. Rachel. One afternoon, Jack left early for a board meeting. Ava took the opportunity to do a deep cleaning of the master bedroom. Emily was napping, and the house was quiet, save for the soft hum of London outside. As Ava moved through the room, she noticed a cardboard box tucked in the back of the wardrobe, covered in dust. She hesitated. It wasn't her place to pry, but part of her wondered if it was something important. Maybe old clothes, maybe baby things, memories Jack didn't have the heart to deal with. She pulled it out carefully and placed it on the bed. Inside were photos: Rachel's smiling face, arms around Jack, holding a newborn Emily. There were letters, little trinkets, and then a black phone, long powered off. Emily stirred in the nursery. Ava picked her up and brought her into the bedroom so she wouldn't be alone. Back on the bed, the baby saw the shiny phone and reached for it with both hands. Before Ava could stop her, Emily's small fingers tapped the screen, and to her surprise, it lit up. The battery was low, but it worked. Then it happened. A video began to play. Ava's breath caught in her throat. On the screen was Rachel. Sitting in this very room, her eyes bright, her smile tired, but full of something deeper urgency. If you're watching this, I'm probably gone. Ava froze. Daniel. Rachel stopped herself, shaking her head. Jack, if it's you who found this, forgive me. I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid it would change everything between us. Ava's eyes darted toward Emily, who sat quietly now, her little hands resting on the blanket. Rachel's voice returned, softer. Emily isn't biologically ours. I adopted her, Jack, without telling you. Silence. I found her in an orphanage during a charity trip. She was so small, so fragile. No one had claimed her, and I just knew. I knew she was meant for us. I made the papers look official. I didn't want to risk losing her, or you. But if you're watching this, you deserve to know the truth. Ava's fingers trembled as she paused the video. She sat still, holding Emily close. Her heart pounded in her chest like a warning bell. She had no right to watch it, no right to know. But now she did. What now? That evening, Jack returned home to find Ava quieter than usual. At dinner, she spilled Emily's juice. Twice. Her hands shook as she cleared the plates. Are you okay? He asked. Yes, just tired. But she wasn't tired. She was torn. All night, Ava replayed the words in her head. The weight of what she had seen pressed on her like a stone. Should she stay silent? Should she tell Jack? He had the right to know. The next day, after Emily had gone to sleep, Ava stood outside Jack's office door, the phone in her hand. She knocked. "Come in." Jack looked up from his desk. "I need to show you something," Ava said. He frowned. "What is it?" She walked forward and placed the phone gently on his desk. "It's Rachel's." Jack stared at it. Slowly he picked it up, tapped the screen, and watched. Ava stood silently as his expression changed, confusion, disbelief, then something darker. His jaw tightened. His hands trembled. When the video ended, Jack sat in silence. Then his voice broke. "This is a lie." "Jack, no. This can't be real. You had no right to watch that. I didn't mean to." "Emily," she tapped it. "It just played. I didn't know. Maybe you edited it. Maybe you did this to what?" Ava's voice cracked. "What do you think I want from you?" "I don't know anymore," Jack snapped. "But you had no right." Tears filled Ava's eyes. "I thought you deserved the truth. I trusted you. I let you into my house, into my daughter's life. And now this?" She stood frozen, hurt, spreading through her chest like fire. "Get out," Jack said quietly. "Right now." "Jack," I said, "get out." And just like that, the peace shattered. She packed that night, her hands trembling as she folded the last of Emily's clothes. Before leaving, she crept into the nursery. The baby was asleep, curled into a familiar shape. Ava leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I love you, my darling. Don't forget me." Then she walked out the door, heartbroken, wondering if doing the right thing had cost her everything. The house was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence Ava had helped create, but the heavy, lifeless silence that settles after a door slams shut. Jack sat alone in his office, the video still paused on Rachel's face. Her voice, now just pixels and sound waves, echoed in his mind. "I was afraid you wouldn't love her if you knew." He had watched the video 3 more times after Ava left. Each time something inside him twisted tighter, not because it wasn't real, but because he knew it was. Rachel had lied. Ava had told the truth, and he'd thrown her out anyway. Upstairs, Emily cried. She had been crying all day, refusing food, refusing sleep. She looked around the room as if searching for something or someone who never came. Jack tried everything. He held her, sang to her, carried her from room to room, but she only grew more distressed, her face red, her breath catching between sobs. He called the agency again. A new nanny arrived that evening, cheerful and confident. She lasted 3 hours. By morning, another nanny came, then another. In 5 days, 4 different women had come and gone. All of them left with the same words. "We've never seen a baby this attached." Jack knew what they meant. Emily didn't want another nanny. She wanted Ava. But pride is a dangerous thing. Jack couldn't bring himself to admit he had made a mistake, not out loud, not even to himself. Until that night. Emily had been screaming for over 2 hours. Jack sat on the nursery floor, rocking her in his arms, desperate. He had changed her diaper, warmed her bottle, swaddled her tight. Nothing worked. "What do you want?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "Tell me what to do." She only cried harder. And then, for the first time in months, Jack cried with her. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "You miss her, don't you?" "You miss Ava." The next morning, Jack brought Rachel's phone to a media forensics lab. "I need to know if this video was edited in any way," he told the technician. "It'll cost you £1,000. "I don't care." 2 days later, the results came back. No signs of manipulation, the technician confirmed. This recording is authentic. Jack stared at the report in his hand. The truth was right there in black and white. But it came with a bitter aftertaste. He had accused the only person who had never lied to him of betrayal, and he had sent her away. Miles away, in the quieter town of Birmingham, Ava sat on a small twin bed in a guest room that smelled faintly of lavender and wood polish. Her new employer, Mrs. Eleanor Harrison, was kind. The job was simple: cleaning, cooking, nothing complicated. The pay wasn't much, but it came with a roof and enough to send a little home to her grandmother. Still, it wasn't home. Every night, Ava thought about Emily, about the way the baby had clung to her shirt, the weight of her in her arms, the way her breathing would calm whenever Ava sang. Did she still cry? Was she okay? She longed to know, but feared the answer. One afternoon, while polishing a mirror in the hallway, Ava's phone rang. It was a London number she didn't recognize. Hello? Miss Miller, this is Dr. Whitaker. I'm a pediatrician treating a patient named Emily Callahan. Her father gave me your number. Ava froze. Yes, I used to care for her. Is she all right? She's physically fine, but emotionally, she's showing signs of severe infant depression. She's not eating well. She hardly sleeps. It's as if she's mourning. Ava's throat tightened. I thought you should know, the doctor continued. Her father said you were the only one who could soothe her. If there's any chance you could come visit just to help. I'm sorry, Ava said quietly. I no longer work for Mr. Callahan. I understand, but sometimes babies bond so deeply that separation becomes traumatic. Think about it, Miss Miller. She misses you. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the rain tapping against the windows, wondering if Emily was crying somewhere too, wondering if Jack had realized yet what he'd lost. She rolled over and whispered into the darkness, I'm sorry, baby girl. I didn't mean to leave you. And for the first time in years, she wept, not for herself, but for the child she had come to love as her own. The silence in the Callahan home was no longer peaceful. It was suffocating. Jack walked through the halls like a ghost in his own life. Each room echoed with reminders. Emily's stuffed bunny abandoned near the fireplace, a half-folded blanket Ava once used to rock her in, the faint trace of vanilla and lavender from the baby's shampoo she preferred. But it was the nursery that hurt the most. Emily wasn't the same. Since Ava left, she refused bottles, flinched at new faces, and cried until her voice gave out. The emergency nanny agency had sent their bestolder women with decades of experience, but none lasted more than a day or two. They all said the same thing. We've never seen anything like this. She's grieving. Jack didn't need a diagnosis to see the truth. Emily had lost someone she loved, and it was his fault. That evening, as dusk settled over London, Jack sat in the living room with Emily resting against his chest. Her body was warm but limp with exhaustion, her small hands gripping the collar of his shirt like she was holding on for dear life. He whispered, I'm sorry. It was the first apology he'd spoken aloud in weeks, and it wasn't just for Emily. Later that night, he pulled Rachel's old phone from the drawer and watched the video again. Not with anger, not with disbelief, but with acceptance. Her words hit differently now. I was afraid to tell you the truth because I didn't want to lose what we had. Jack paused the video, staring into his wife's frozen face. You lost me anyway, Rach, he murmured, and now I've pushed away the only person who tried to bring us back together. The next morning he drove across the city to a private video forensics lab. He handed over the phone and a credit card. I need you to tell me if this video's been edited in any way. The technician, a man in his 30s with wire-frame glasses, nodded. Give me 2 days. Jack didn't hesitate. Take whatever time you need. Just be sure. Those next 48 hours crawled. Emily barely slept. Jack spent his nights pacing, checking her temperature, offering bottles she wouldn't touch. She grew quieter, like her cries had worn thin. Her bright eyes now looked hollow. Then the call came. "Mr. Callahan, this is Logan Pierce at Image Cert Labs." Jack held his breath. "We've completed the analysis. The video is authentic. No signs of tampering, no editing, no audio manipulation. It's real." Jack didn't speak for a moment. The weight of the truth settled in. Rachel had lied to protect love. Ava had told the truth and been cast out for it. And now, the only one suffering more than him was the little girl who had nothing to do with either decision. That night, Jack sat in the nursery long after Emily fell asleep. He watched her tiny chest rise and fall, each breath more fragile than the last. Her fingers twitched in a dream. Maybe she was reaching for Ava even there. He whispered, "She misses you." And at last, he admitted the part he couldn't ignore anymore. "I miss you too." The next morning, he made 2 phone calls. The first was to Dr. Whitaker. "Do you still have Ava Carter's contact information?" "Yes," the doctor said. But she didn't sound eager to return. "I understand," Jack replied. "I'm not asking her to come back as an employee. I'm asking for a chance to make things right." The second call was harder. Jack contacted the cleaning agency Ava once worked for. After some resistance, one woman reluctantly gave him an address in Birmingham. "She's working for an older lady. Keeps to herself. Says very little." Jack packed a small bag and left Emily with a trusted caregiver for the day. He didn't know what he was going to say. He only knew that silence had cost him enough already. The drive to Birmingham took over 4 hours. He rehearsed apologies, rewrote them in his head, then discarded them all. When he pulled up in front of a modest house with flowers on the windowsill, his hands trembled on the steering wheel. He knocked once. An elderly woman opened the door. Her sharp gaze scanned him from head to toe. His tailored coat, his polished shoes, the weight of guilt in his eyes. "Yes?" "I'm looking for Ava Carter." The woman crossed her arms. "Why?" Jack's voice cracked. "Because I made a mistake. And because a little girl who used to smile hasn't smiled in weeks, Mrs. Harrison studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "Wait here." Jack stood outside, heart pounding, knowing that the next few minutes would determine more than just forgiveness. They would determine whether a family could still be rebuilt. Ava Carter was hanging laundry in the quiet backyard when Mrs. Harrison appeared in the doorway. "My dear," she said gently, "there's a man at the front. Says his name is Jack Callahan." Ava froze. The bedsheet she was holding slipped through her fingers. "He says it's about the baby." The ache in her chest returned like an old injury. Ava's hands trembled slightly as she wiped them on her apron. She hadn't spoken Jack's name in weeks, not aloud, not even in her prayers. "Tell him to leave." Mrs. Harrison hesitated. "Are you sure? He looks different, tired, heavy." Ava looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "So was I, when he told me to get out." Still, something inside her wouldn't settle. She took a slow breath and walked toward the front of the house, her steps cautious, her heart uncertain. Jack stood just outside the gate, his hands in his coat pockets, looking at the pavement like it had answers. When he looked up and saw her, he didn't smile. He didn't speak right away. Ava crossed her arms. "What do you want, Mr. Callahan?" He winced. She used to call him Jack when they were alone. "I need to talk to you," he said softly. "We already talked. In fact, if I remember correctly, your final words were, 'Get out.'" Her voice was calm, but beneath it lay months of betrayal and pain. "I know," Jack replied, "and I was wrong." Ava said nothing. He took a step closer, but stopped at the fence. "I had the video analyzed. It's real. I know that now. Ava's eyes didn't soften. And I treated you like a liar, like someone who wanted something from me. But the truth is, you were the only one who told me what I needed to hear. She looked away. Emily's not well, Jack continued. She cries all night. Refuses to eat. She's lost weight. The doctor says she's in emotional distress. Ava's jaw tightened. You could have avoided that. I know. I thought I was protecting her. But really, I was protecting my pride. And now I'm standing in a stranger's driveway begging the woman I pushed away to come back. Silence hung between them. She misses you, Ava, Jack said. And I miss you too. She shook her head. You miss the woman who calmed your daughter, or the one who kept your house in order. I miss the woman who sang in the kitchen while stirring mashed carrots. The one who spoke to me like I was a person, not a title. The one who made my daughter laugh. The one who made me feel like there was still life left in me. Her eyes welled despite her best efforts. I was scared, Jack confessed. Scared of betraying Rachel's memory. Scared of letting someone else in. Scared that if I cared too much, I might lose again. You don't get to show up and say these things now, Ava said, her voice cracking. Not after you made me feel like trash. I know. That's why I'm not asking you to come back as my employee. She looked up, wary. I'm asking you to come back as family, Jack said. If you can forgive me. If you can ever trust me again. Not today. Not right away. But maybe someday. Ava didn't answer. Her heart pounded like it didn't know which direction to run. You hurt me, she whispered. Deeply. I'll regret it for the rest of my life, Jack replied. She studied his face. The tired eyes, the weight he carried, the way he wasn't demanding anything but hoping, genuinely hoping. What exactly are you asking for? Jack drew a long breath. Come home, not to clean, not to be the help, but to be part of what Emily and I are trying to build. A family. A real one. Ava crossed her arms again, this time more to steady herself than to shield. If I come back, it won't be the same. I don't want it to be the same, he said. I want it to be better. She was quiet for a long moment. The breeze picked up, carrying with it the faint scent of summer grass and something older hope. I'm not saying yes for you, she said finally. I'm saying yes. For Emily. Because she didn't deserve what happened. Jack nodded. That's more than enough. Ava exhaled, unsure if she was walking into another heartbreak or towards something that could finally last. I'll need time, she said, to believe you've changed. I'll give you all the time you need. And for the first time in weeks, Ava stepped outside the fence, not just to follow Jack, but maybe to find her way back to herself, too. The house looked the same. But everything felt different. Ava stood just inside the front door, suitcase in hand, unsure where to put her feet. Jack gently took the bag from her without a word and nodded toward the stairs. Your room is still the same. I didn't touch anything. She gave a polite nod, her eyes drifting toward the nursery. A muffled sound came from inside, weak, rhythmic, almost hesitant. Emily. Jack didn't need to ask. He gestured softly. She's awake. Ava stepped into the room as if crossing into a dream. The baby lay curled in her crib, smaller than she remembered, her cheeks no longer full and rosy. The moment Emily saw her, her eyes widened, then flooded with tears. But this time, they weren't cries of distress. They were relief. Ava rushed forward and scooped the child into her arms. Emily clung to her instantly, her tiny hands wrapping tightly around Ava's braid like a lifeline. Oh, my sweet girl, Ava whispered. You've missed me, haven't you? Jack watched from the doorway, silent. His throat tightened at the sight. Emily hadn't held on like that to anyone else. That night, Ava sat beside the crib, humming the lullabies she used to sing. Emily fell asleep quickly, her breathing soft and steady. Downstairs, Jack waited with a quiet cup of tea, unsure if he was supposed to talk or leave her be. Ava joined him eventually, sitting across the table like a guest in someone else's home. "I want to be clear," she began. "This isn't what it was before. I understand. I'm not here to fill the same role. I'm here because that little girl needs me." Jack nodded. "And because I need to earn back your trust, slowly, if you'll let me." Ava looked at him for a long moment, step by step. That became their rhythm. Each day was a small test. Jack started coming home earlier. He asked about Emily's feeding schedule. He joined Ava on walks with the stroller. He offered to help at bedtime, even if all he did was hold the bottle awkwardly while Ava corrected his grip. There were stumbles. There was hesitation. But there was also effort. Late one night, Ava walked past the nursery and paused. Jack was inside, sitting on the floor beside the crib, talking softly to the baby. "I don't know if I'm doing any of this right," he murmured. "But I want to. I want to be the kind of father you can depend on. And maybe one day, someone you can call your own even if we didn't start that way." Emily made a quiet cooing sound and reached out. Jack extended a finger. To his surprise, she grasped it tightly. Ava stood at the doorway, her eyes stinging. Jack didn't notice her there until she spoke. "She's listening." "She knows you're trying." He turned, startled. "I didn't know you were—" "You don't have to explain," Ava said gently. That was enough. Another evening, Jack attempted dinner. The kitchen quickly filled with smoke, and Ava rushed in, coughing through a laugh. "Are you trying to set the house on fire?" "I was going for omelets." She opened a window and fanned the smoke. "They look more like charcoal sculptures." Jack grinned sheepishly. "They say burnt food builds character. They say that to make bad cooks feel better." They shared a real laugh for the first time in months. Still, Ava kept a boundary. When Jack reached for her hand one night at the dinner table, she pulled back, not harshly, just firmly. "I'm not ready. I know. I need to see the man you're trying to become, not just hear him." Jack looked down, then back at her. "Then I'll keep showing up, one day at a time." "Step by step," she said again, quieter this time. Emily giggled from her high chair, splashing applesauce on her tray like it was a masterpiece. Both adults turned toward her. The little girl beamed, unaware that she was holding together two hearts still healing. And maybe that's what love really was, not the fireworks or the grand declarations, but the quiet moments, the burnt omelettes, the bedtime whispers, the tiny, daily choices to try again. Emily's first word was "Daddy." It came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Ava was making pancakes in the kitchen, and Jack had just walked in, still in his robe, hair messy from sleep. Emily toddled across the tiled floor, arms outstretched, and called out with that one tiny word. "Daddy!" Jack froze. Ava turned from the stove, spatula in midair. Emily beamed, completely unaware of what she had just done to two grown adults' hearts. "She said," Jack started. "I heard." Ava's eyes glistened. "She meant it." Jack bent down, scooping the little girl into his arms, holding her like she was the most fragile, most precious thing in the world. "You don't know what that means to me," he whispered. But he did, and so did Ava. That same afternoon, Jack received a call from his assistant. "It's about the merger with the Japanese firm," Clara said. "They need your decision by tonight." Jack had been avoiding that choice for weeks. The merger meant billions in expansion, a chance to take the company global. But it also meant relocating to Tokyo for at least 2 years, long hours, constant travel, high stakes, no space for quiet breakfasts or bedtime lullabies. That night, over dinner, Jack barely touched his food. Ava noticed immediately. What's wrong? He hesitated. It's work. The Japan deal? He nodded. If I say yes, I leave next month. And if you say no? I walk away from the biggest opportunity of my career. Silence settled between them like fog. Emily, oblivious to the weight in the room, banged her spoon against the tray and smeared mashed peas across her face. I'd have to take you both with me, Jack added quietly. Ava blinked. To Japan? It wouldn't be forever. Just 2 years. Maybe 3. Jack. I don't speak the language. I don't know anyone there. And Emily's just started feeling safe again. I'd help you adjust. Are you asking me to give up everything I've rebuilt, just so you can chase more money? Jack flinched. It's not about the money. It's about legacy, stability, security for her future. She needs you for that. Not a new office in another country. The words hung heavy between them. That night, they went to bed without speaking. Ava stared at the ceiling. Jack stared at the wall. By morning, Jack had made his decision. He drove into the office and stared at the contract on his desk. The numbers were staggering, but they didn't move him. Not like Emily's laugh, not like Ava's quiet strength. He picked up the phone. Clara, tell them no. We're not going forward. There was a long pause on the other end. Are you sure, sir? I've never been more sure. Later that day, he returned home early. Ava was in the garden with Emily, showing her how to water the tomato plants. Jack walked up behind them and crouched next to his daughter. Hey, sweetheart. Emily squealed and threw her arms around his neck. Ava looked up, guarded. Well? I turned it down. Ava's brows lifted. What? The merger. The whole deal. It's done. She stared at him. Jack, that's $1 billion yes, he interrupted. But it would have meant a no to this. To us. He took her hand, gently this time. I've spent my whole life chasing bigger, more. But the truth is, I've never been richer than I am right now. Ava's voice softened. Are you sure? Jack smiled. Money can be replaced. This can't. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small box. Ava's eyes widened. Jack, I'm not asking you to be a nanny, or a helper, or a quiet presence in the corner of my life. He opened the box. A simple ring glimmered in the sunlight. I'm asking you to be my partner, my equal, my wife. Not because Emily needs you, not because I made a mistake, but because you make me better. Every single day. Tears welled in Ava's eyes. You really are terrible at flipping pancakes, she whispered. He laughed. I'm hoping you'll be around to teach me. For a long, long time. She took a long breath, then placed her hand over his. Yes, she said softly. Yes, Jack. I'll marry you. From her stroller, Emily clapped wildly, as if the whole thing had been her plan all along. 2 years later, the Callahan kitchen looked nothing like it once did. Flour dusted every surface. A bowl of pancake batter sat half-stirred on the counter, a spatula dangled from the edge of the sink. And in the center of it all stood a curly-haired little girl in bunny pajamas, waving a whisk like a magic wand. Daddy, I cooking. Jack, now a Saturday morning mess in plaid pajama pants and a faded t-shirt, smiled as he walked in, pretending not to notice the trail of flour footprints across the tile. You're cooking. Looks like you're redecorating. Emily grinned and pointed to the counter. Pancakes. Ava stepped into the kitchen, tying her hair into a loose bun. She wore a simple robe and the same soft expression she had since the day she married Jack in her grandmother's garden in Jamaica. You left her alone for 5 minutes, she said, chuckling. I was changing the laundry, Jack protested. And I was making breakfast, Emily added proudly. Jack reached down and scooped her up, ignoring the cloud of flour that exploded off her sleeves. Well, Mrs. Head Chef, Can I be your assistant today? Emily nodded, smearing batter on his nose. You're messy, Ava laughed, grabbing a towel. You two are hopeless. She kissed Emily's cheek, then gently wiped Jack's face. You still sure you don't miss boardroom meetings and billion-dollar deals? She teased. Jack glanced around the laughter, the chaos, the smell of burnt toast. He didn't hesitate. Not even a little. After breakfast, they cleaned the kitchen together, sort of. Emily mostly chased a sponge around the floor, singing a made-up song about syrup and socks. Jack and Ava worked around her, bumping into each other, stealing little smiles that felt like the sun itself had moved inside their home. Later that afternoon, they sat on the back porch, watching Emily run barefoot in the grass. Ava rested her head on Jack's shoulder. She's changed everything, she murmured. Jack looked at her. You both did. The wind rustled the garden leaves. Emily twirled in her own world, humming and giggling, happy in ways she never had been before. Not in those early days of crying, not in the quiet before Ava. She doesn't remember, Ava said softly. Not really. The pain, the chaos. No, Jack replied. But we do, and that's what makes this even more beautiful. Ava nodded. I used to think love was a grand gesture, Jack continued. A perfect wedding. The right words, big promises. And now I think it's pancakes, and burnt eggs, and staying, even on the hard days. Ava turned to look at him, her eyes warm. You really did become the man I hoped you would. Jack smiled. Only because you became the woman I didn't know I needed. In the distance, Emily shouted, Mummy! Daddy! Look at me! She balanced on one foot, arms flailing. They clapped like she had just conquered the world. And in a way, she had. Because their world, this home, this family wasn't built on bloodlines or fairy tales. It was built on second chances, on daily decisions to choose love over fear, presence over perfection. That night, after Emily fell asleep curled between them with her bunny tucked under her arm, Jack and Ava lay awake in the soft quiet of their shared bed. Do you ever think about what might have happened if I didn't come back? Ava whispered. Jack shook his head. No. Because I don't live in that world. I live in this one. With you. She smiled in the dark. It wasn't a perfect life. Emily still threw tantrums. Jack still occasionally burned dinner. Ava still worried too much and triple-checked the locks every night. But it was their life, full of laughter, forgiveness, messes, and memories. And finally, it felt like home. Life rarely gives us perfect beginnings. Sometimes it's the deepest cracks that allow the strongest love to grow. Through Jack, Ava, and little Emily's journey, we learn that family isn't just about blood, it's about showing up, forgiving deeply, and choosing love over pride, one day at a time. Jack thought success meant power and wealth, but when his world fell apart, it was a simple woman with a kind heart and a child's innocent trust that rebuilt it. Ava didn't come into his life with promises. She came with presence, and that changed everything. This story reminds us that it's never too late to make things right, that forgiveness can heal more than anger ever could. And that love, real love, shows itself in small moments, burnt pancakes, late-night lullabies, second chances. To anyone who's known loss or regret, don't give up on connection. Sometimes, the life you were meant to have comes not with a bang, but with a whisper at your doorstep, and a child reaching for your hand. Because in the end, home isn't a place. It's the people who choose you again and again,